What's up, everybody? It's a rainy night here in eastern Massachusetts, and the Commanders Bears game is not the most entertaining. So I was going through my Patreon, and I got a pretty interesting question from one of the guys on there, and I thought it would be nice to drop a short on it. Question was essentially, how do you know when it's time to cut bait on failing Devy type assets in a campus to Canton league? I think it's a great question. First, my friends at campus2canton.com have done some work on this idea, particularly for skill positions, uh, wide receiver at least. They've been able to back test some data. And for wide receivers, it scored a touchdown or gone. I think it's over 100 yards, or there's a couple other criterias. Rushing touchdown, I think, are good. Um, you're very unlikely to be an NFL player at that point. The odds become staggeringly low. If you have met those thresholds, the odds are much better. So if you had a player in that instance and it's his second year and he's not doing much, still may be worth hanging on to him if he hit those thresholds as a freshman. If a player missed those as a freshman, that doesn't mean I'm dropping them for their sophomore year, but it means I'm certainly tempering expectations. And at that point, if they continue to be unproductive, I think it's reasonable to put them in the pot of players. Kitty, okay, get out of here. Pot of players that you're willing to drop for the right person. Don't just cut guys with talent. Don't cut 4-star and 5-star recruits unless you're picking someone up that's serving a purpose for your team. A similar high recruit that is producing, or a guy that's really doing some damage on the college side. For running backs, I think the same premise applies. I'm not aware anyone's done a ton of research on it, but if you're not on the field as a freshman or a sophomore, or you have 2 seasons of limited game action and it hasn't been efficient and it hasn't been productive, and there's no extenuating circumstances that would indicate that the player might still be talented, then most of the time I think it's pretty safe to drop them. You certainly have guys that break out later at the running back position, and not just Alabama guys. Although certainly if you have an Alabama running back and he's only gotten a handful of carries in his first 2 seasons, that definitely doesn't mean that you should drop him, right? And if he's gotten a few carries and they've been productive, well, that's how it goes sometimes in a crowded room. So I'm not dropping, a Roy Dale Williams, right, for a guy that is going to put up a couple of points in college. I would drop him maybe if I had shorter benches and I'm trying to pick up a highly productive college asset. And I do that in the scenario that my team is very competitive and that I think is going to push me over the top, and, I'm not talking about dropping him for the flavor of the week that, got a long rushing touchdown, but, a guy that's put up a couple consecutive games in the high teens, looking for yardage against defenses that are decent, passing game work. If we're talking about a Antwain Littleton or a Roman Hemby, right, that have demonstrated some consistent usage, or LeBourne from Marshall, right? Like, clearly I'm going to drop a marginal Devy asset that's not productive for those guys. Again, I think that the Alabama guys might be a bad example because look at Brian Robinson, right? Got limited work there as a junior, a little bit as a sophomore, ever did too much. And then, one was a great college asset his senior year, and two got day 2 draft capital, right? And that's Alabama. I'm not going to feel the same way about Gavin Williams from Iowa, right? Got an opportunity this year, did very poorly, got outproduced by a freshman. He's gone. He's done. He's off my teams. Not worth keeping. Quarterbacks, I will be a little bit more patient with. Like Sam Heward, is one of the examples that my friend brought up. Sometimes those guys take a couple of years to develop, and the odds of, say, a pocket passer that doesn't get on the field until he's a junior being a huge Devy asset are pretty low. Usually the guys that break out later at quarterback were the toolsy guys that came in raw and needed to develop, and you knew they were going to sit. I don't know if he works out, but like a Mike Wright would be an example, or Hendon Hooker fit that profile. Didn't play early, but really tightened his game up and got better. The kid from Florida State too, right? Jordan Travis, kind of the same thing. Got some limited work freshman and sophomore years. Wasn't great. And then now as a junior, he's really taken a step and excelled. Jalen Daniels, same thing, right? Didn't do much last year, got the opportunity and really excelled. So we'll be more patient with quarterbacks, but Sam Heward, I don't know. I still have him on a bunch of rosters. I'm not dropping him, but if there was a team changer on the waiver wire, I probably would. I don't think it's likely he's an NFL player at this point. He's been beaten out. And Penix is playing very well, right? It's not like he got beaten out by a low-level G5 transfer. Penix had been good in Indiana, and he's playing very well. But if he was going to be an NFL talent, he should have been able to beat him out. He should have been able to make a run for that. Like I said, guys make a run late in their career. You see this happening now, but I don't think the odds are very high. Like, I'm not actively trying to acquire Sam Heward. I think the other time that it's worth hanging on to these guys a little bit more is when you do see extenuating circumstances that are inhibiting them from producing. And, we like to say that alphas will produce anyways, studs will produce regardless. But look at that Washington offense. Look at Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze. Both of them flashed early, and if you're paying attention, film guys were telling you to pick them up. I was an Odunze fan early. A lot of guys loved McMillan as a recruit and were really high on him flashing his athleticism as a freshman and as a sophomore. But that was an offense that was patently bad, with patently bad play calling and extremely poor quarterback play. That's going to affect a wide receiver's production. We see these guys every year transfer and take off. So I think you got to look at the extenuating circumstances too. But when you do see a guy producing in a bad environment, I think it's easy to put him in a tier higher than his production would warrant by itself. I hope this was somewhat helpful. Certainly hit me up if questions or you have specific players you want to talk about. No guru, but happy to chat about the players and share my experience. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of this game.